He spent more than 5 years in federal prison after being convicted of bribery and conspiracy.
Health South founder Richard Scrushy was accused of using his power and wealth to bribe Alabama Governor Don Siegelman with $500,000 for his lottery campaign. This in exchange for Scrushy being appointed to the state's Hospital Review Board. Now, Scrushy is speaking exclusively with WIAT 42 News.
Scrushy had previously been charged in a fraud and corruption scandal at Health South, but was acquitted of all charges in that case.
WIAT 42 News anchor Stephen Houck recently traveled to Houston, Texas to speak exclusively with Scrushy, who has a lot to say about his conviction and his time in federal prison.
He was a boy from Selma, Alabama, who grew up to create a billion-dollar business empire based in Birmingham. Richard Scrushy's Health South Corporation became the largest outpatient health care provider in the nation. But he lost it all and was sent to federal prison.
You've got to believe there was a reason that I was there, because I was not guilty of what I was charged with, and everybody knows that. Anybody that's looked at the case knows that, but that's okay. I'm not mad at anybody. I'm not upset about that. I'm not drinking any poison. Bottom line was, I said, okay, God, I'm here. I'm going to make the best of this.
In custody in a federal prison camp, to use that term, what was that like for Richard Scrushy?
It was kind of like, growing up in a very austere situation. You had limited clothing. You're in a situation where, we had a lot of time on our hands. Just like we had a lot back in those days, we had a lot of time on our hands.
Scrushy says he spent that extra time teaching in the prison's education program, everything from real estate to business courses. He also says he grew in his faith.
I was involved in the church. As you know, I'm a minister. I continued to minister there. I led the praise and worship team for the whole time I was there. I played at when the warden had his benefits and his parties that they had for volunteers and whatnot. I always played and performed. They asked me to speak at the events, so I was very active, trying to be the best that I could be.
That attitude, says Scrushy, allowed him to have a smooth experience in federal custody, all things considered.
I didn't have any problem with anybody. I got along with the leadership. I got along with the people that worked there. I got along with the guards. People complain about the food. I just made the best of it. I just said, hey, it's what we've got. Let's just eat it and drive on, and we did.
It was the time away from family that Scrushy says was the most difficult part.
I had a 13-year-old son when I went in, and he was 18 when I came out. Well, I missed his whole, teenagehood. That's bad. I had a little boy in diapers when I went in, okay? He was, the 2 to 3-year-old range. Well, I came out when he was, 5 years later. Same thing for my young daughters, my older daughters.
Although Richard Scrushy has decided to separate himself from the turmoil of his past to live here in Houston, Texas, he says he has no bitterness towards the city of Birmingham, where he built his billion-dollar corporation.
I love the city, and I still have family there. I have children there and grandchildren there, and I think it's a fantastic city.
As for the bribery and conspiracy convictions with Governor Don Siegelman, Scrushy still insists they did nothing wrong.
He shouldn't be in prison, and I should have never gone. But I'm not mad about it. I've said, okay, it's wrong. I'm mad. If I'm mad about anything, I think they need to let that man out of prison because he doesn't deserve to be there. He's done nothing wrong. They already put me through it, and I'm out. They need to let him out because he's an innocent man.
How do you not have bitter feelings? How are you able to move through something that challenging?
There's only one way, and it's faith. It's only one way. You have to understand where joy, we read in the scripture about joy and peace. And, Jesus said, and you're going to have me preaching here, okay? You see, peace comes from him. And our joy comes from him. It doesn't come from anywhere else.
Throughout my entire interview with Richard Scrushy, he stayed noticeably positive and upbeat. He says he still stays in touch with some of the inmates who he met in federal prison. Scrushy also tells me he's happy to see Health South continue to remain a successful company, which he says is because of the strong foundation that he built there. There is much more that I discussed in my interview, including Scrushy's new book, what he and his family are doing in Houston, and more on the legal troubles of his past. To see my full exclusive interview with Richard Scrushy, go to WIAT.com.